Hey guys, Scarlett Darkwood here, and I have a wonderful, amazing guest for all of you. You all have heard of near death experiences and the transformation that can occur as a result. And my lovely friend Aurora here has come on and decided she wants to tell her story and share it with you because she has some wonderful things and amazing things that she wants you to know about. So go ahead and you can introduce yourself again and launch right into it. What happened so long ago?
Thank you so much, Scarlett. Thank you for having me here on your show. Yeah, my name is Aurora, and I don't have two names. I just have one name. And when I first came into this body and into this realm and started interacting with humanity, I didn't have the language to describe who and what I was. It took a little bit of time for people to give me the word walk-in. So that is how I currently describe myself. And I say I'm a galactic walk-in because I later learned there's all sorts of different types of walk-ins that can happen when a person either dies or has a near-death experience, or actually the whole entire walk-in contract has been renegotiated. So I came in 2001, and it was into this body, human female woman who had had a brain injury and literally would have died if I didn't come in as an abstract waveform presence or a being of pure energy to be able to animate and heal this body and take on the mantle of this life. But in subsequent years, so first of all, I didn't used to have the word walk in. I actually came in with minimal language skills and no cultural context, like as if you move to a foreign land and you do not know, like, what people's sense of humor is like, what's important to them, how to describe things. So yeah, I didn't have effective descriptive terms for who I was and what I was. I used to say also, like, I'm an extraterrestrial, and people are used to that movie where they're like, point to your star in the night sky and tell me where are your origins from. And I would say, it's really not like that, because I'm from a place that is not a space-time coordinate. So it's not a place where you can say, I point to that star and that's where I came from, or I came in a clank clank metal spaceship. It's not like that. I really come from a consciousness collective, or I emanate from or am derived from a consciousness collective that is named Aurora. And I am also concurrent. So it means that I'm there and I'm here at the same time, which I recognize now can be like a challenging concept for the linear human mind to be able to encompass. But also, like I said, I came in 2001, so I've been here for over 20 years, and I've watched humanity really level up in its capacitation to accept and comprehend things that are very nonlinear. So humans, good job leveling up. And now when I tell people like, oh, I'm concurrent, I live there and I live here at the same time, I'm kind of in two places at one time. I think that it is less mind liquefying to try to conceive of what that is, but I have a complex existence, and my collective is a group of consciousnesses that is totally based in love, totally based in cosmic laws such as freedom, and what you send out and what you get, what you send out comes back to you. Like, these are basic kind of like laws of physics, like laws of energy, laws that sustain the cosmos, and very, very much about freedom and consent and the recognition of that divine structure that upholds everything. Because I also, like, when I came in as a walk-in and I would tell people, I didn't have that word again, but tell them what had happened, they were kind of afraid, and they were like, are you a body snatcher? I'm like, no, 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 no. I had to watch these movies in order to find out that is not what I am at all. But I learned also a lot about the filter, the cultural filter of this time place, how people might be afraid. Like, are you jumping into someone else's body? Are you allowed to be here? Did you steal someone else's body? So I had to explain very, very carefully, like, no, I didn't steal anybody's body. I came into this life, and it's what people might describe as a soul contract, even though it was not really an agreement that was made a long time ago, but it's an agreement that I made with the person that used to have this body, like for the first 27 years of being here and being alive, that if she wasn't able to continue onward, kind of like taking the baton and running the relay race. So like, I took the baton of her life, I took the impulse of being able to be in a body, and I was able to continue and carry it forward. And it's in honoring of that person, that identity, but they are not here anymore, but I am here. But I certainly didn't take their life from them or cause their death in any way. And really, if I didn't come in and animate this body, like, the body would have would have deceased, it would have decomposed, would not be walking around doing everything. And I know it's a little bit strange to talk about my body as like an it, but really, so it's been over 20 years. At this point, I'm very well integrated with my body. And I had to do a lot of handyman fixing up, because you can imagine if there's a brain injury, like there's a lot of neurological, like real damage that was there, that you move into a house where like there's been a house fire or a flood or something like that, like you're going to have to fix stuff up, because there's damage at a foundation level. So yeah, I spent the first couple of years of my existence here just really learning how to fix up the body, and then also learning about the paradigm of being on earth, because I was totally numerically illiterate. Like I did not understand math and addition and subtraction or really recognize numbers. And I really did not comprehend about money. And that's a big thing that motivates and is at the basis of daily life in this world. And I had to learn a lot about what numbers are and what money is, just to be able to get into the swing of integrating with what daily activities are like here. I don't know if I have to even say it, like we don't have money where I come from. And even when I have incarnated on earth in other times, that we didn't have money in those times either. So steep learning curve. I didn't know about money. I was prepared to be a light eater, but I was not prepared to be a food eater. So the first couple of weeks that I was here, I was like eating sunlight, tuning in on the sun, doing all of my, energy circulation exercises through my body. And I'm like, why do I feel like so empty inside? What is this kind of like empty ow pain that is here? I didn't really know. And then I had to learn, like, look, in this time place, you can't just sustain yourself on sunlight. You have to eat physical food. And that's very, very different than the world that I remember. So I had to kind of like start learning about food. And these learning adventures happened for me at chronological body age 27. So in chronological adulthood. But these are parallel developmental stages that most people go through in human infancy. Like you come here as a little baby and you're like, wow, I'm alive, I'm alive. And they try to make you put like milk or something into your mouth. And you're like, what's this weird thing? Like, I have to do this in order to stay alive. And everyone's like, yes, you have to do this. You have to learn to eat. You have to learn to digest. You have to figure out that food is necessary for being here. So analogous journeys, but just done at different chronological ages. And I had to learn about human language and socialization, different than, a little tiny child, but I had to learn all of those types of lessons, all for this purpose. And the purpose is the shape that I'm holding up. And you can even see a little bit, I have one that's hanging from the ceiling, and I have little wearable versions of them. This shape is called the flying rainbow lasagna. And the relevance to my story is this is the shape of the genetic portal that I came through in order to come into this body. So I don't have a physical spaceship. I don't have when I'm not in this body, I mostly don't have a physical presence, but this is a sculptural representation of the waveform, of the harmonic waveform that I am in an abstract sense. And that by making the DNA of this body undulate in this form, I am able to be here and to be, having a human shaped existence, even while I'm also really living on a very abstract plane. And the abstract plane, I was joking with Scarlett, it's 1,000 degrees outside. It's very hot outside. So mostly I have the curtains closed, but I have them open a little bit. I hope that you can see some of
Yes.
my paintings in the background here. So the world that I really come from and inhabit is this rainbow colored, extremely well organized, you would call it like a geometric, some people think it's like a kaleidoscope, but this world that might even be like your inner landscape if you've ever had a visionary experience. That's where I really come from, an
So
abstract
that's like
mathematical.
an energy, like you come from an energy field.
You got it.
Yes, an
Beautifully
energy
said.
field.
Well,
Now, this is just fascinating because you hear of a lot of people having a terrible experience of maybe like
yeah,
about to die, and they see
right.
the light, and they're told to come back, and then they have their experience. But I've never heard of someone in a situation where somebody or an energy took their place because the soul that left the body said, okay, you finish it. Why would the person that had the body you're in now, why would they pass a baton on? Why would you do that?
Beautiful question. So, the thing that really killed them and created the brain injury was a type of technology that is highly illegal in terms of the larger cosmic galactic structure, that is a soul disruption or a soul erasure. And when I define soul, talking with people here in this world, I'm talking about the provenance of who you are. Like, you live many incarnations, just like an antique. When you have an antique, you're like, whatever, this is my antique vase that I put water in. It's not an antique at all. But if it were, then you'd say, like, it was made here. Then this person bought it. Then it lived here. Then it went to this museum. It's the provenance of where this came from. And your consciousness and your soul has a similar story. Like, you were here and you had these experiences and you changed and you metamorphosed into a new shape and you went and you were here and you were this and you were that. And it's incredibly priceless. It's as priceless as a Ming vase or a Fabergé egg. It is unique in the cosmos. It is unique as your fingerprint or your genetic code, that there's really no one else who is exactly like you in terms of the complex journey that you've been on. And this technology that they were using against this person who died, they kind of erased half of her, erased part of her definition of self beyond the ego. So it's different if you die and you're an ego, if your ego dies, your spirit or your soul is eternal and goes onward. But to be able to like erase or disrupt a part of the soul is very illegal. Like, that doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen. Ask.
Right. That's
Yeah.
an interesting concept because we learn of souls being eternal.
Yeah.
They belong to the cosmic, and
Yes.
that soul will
Yeah.
incarnate into a body to learn a lesson. So what is the
That's right.
illegality? Are you able to share what happened to the soul entity before
Yeah.
you walked in?
Yeah, so I would say there was enough disruption in that soul. Souls are woven. I'm sorry, I fragmented myself, but I had to rewind in order to say there's a fabric of reality that souls are woven together just like threads are woven together, and you have interactivities and causality patterns of like, this happened because this life touched on this in this way. And if you take out enough threads, like if you get a moth-eaten hole in your sweater, at a certain point the entire sweater will unravel. It loses structural integrity. So what happened in the destruction or cutting of the threads of this particular life was part of a larger destabilization of reality agenda, like a very, very negative agenda that is the antithesis of life-giving or life-sustaining. That is, you could think of it as part of the adversarial duality of the cosmos, but like, that's a stretch. That's like a bit of a stretch to say like, oh yes, like, evil exists to teach us a lesson or something like that. I'm being a little bit lighthearted and facetious, but really it's something that should not exist at all. Because you mentioned this, it's true. Souls are eternal. No one should be able to create any kind of a technology that can disrupt them or erase them. It would be like erasing you from the book of life and as if you never existed. And that is what they were trying to do to the person that was in this body. And I, as a higher dimensional presence, recognize that this is totally wrong, totally illegal, and would have harmful repercussions. And I said, that is not allowed. So she was already erased at the time that I made the choice to do this flying rainbow lasagna portal and come into the body. And that means that it's not like she's in the afterlife looking longingly at me and being like, oh, I wish I was down there, eating ice cream or petting a dog or something like that. Like, it's not that at all. And it's actually been a bit of a challenge to explain and describe to people, like, she's not on a cloud or in a heaven or in an existence plane wishing to come back into this body. That is really like she was eradicated, which is distressing. It should be distressing
So
because it's
you're
something that should
saying
never.
that soul entity is gone, technically,
Yeah. Yeah. Or let's say disrupted to
to,
being fragmented or
to
under
where
cover
it's
of.
not able to function as a whole soul normally
Exactly.
would if we looked at it solely
Exactly.
anatomical. Okay.
Good pun.
Right.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
who are you able to say who the they are that destroyed
Yeah.
her?
Yeah, yes. So this requires like a lot of perspective because there are all sorts of different types of entities and organizations that are pan-dimensional across multiple dimensions and across multiple timelines, and that you would just classify them as evil or malevolent or the opposite or antithesis of good and life-sustaining and divinely connected. So things that are not divinely connected, that don't run on creative life force energy, that cause death and destruction, and that really have an overall agenda to just destroy everything. And so they use technology. Technology isn't inherently evil, but these evil and malevolent forces use technology, and they use it in such a way as to disrupt time. So imagine, like, something that is very psychopathic, has a mental degeneracy, a negative agenda, and then also add technology to that, to those tendencies. And you can imagine time travel. Like, if you're a good person and you time travel, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to improve time in some way. But if you're a bad person and you time travel, you're like causing disruption or trying to get rich at other people's expense, or, change reality structures so that you end up being the king or whatever it is. Very, very harmful, dangerous stuff. And these entities or organizations actually look for critical time nodes. And they're like, that juncture right there, if we kill that person there, then none of these good things will happen. If we disrupt that person there, then none of these positive things will happen. And they try to, like, take down the entire Jenga tower of reality. Jenga, like the
Yes.
little
Pull
part
one
moves.
and it all comes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you hear of, we worry about humans here. Oh, they're trying to change the world or destroy the world as we know it. Should we be really afraid of humans and what's going on in the climate now, or do we need to be afraid of these other cosmic entities out there? And are they here on Earth?
Awesome question, and shows so much insight that you're experiencing. Yeah, that's the real thing that you have to be concerned about. I would say that this larger or more pervasive pathogen is a good word for it, like something that is unhealthy for the body, or psychopath, meaning like pathogen of the mind. That's what you really have to worry about. And I would even say that it is the origin of psychopathology on Earth, as evidenced in the human mind. Like, when I came here and I experienced a lot of social distortions that we didn't have in the time places that I'm familiar with. Like, there's poverty here, and there's starvation here, and there are ways of discarding people, like people are homeless or they're drug addicts, and that they are not supported in a social structure. We don't have that in the worlds that I'm familiar with, but these levels of dysfunction exist specifically because of the psychopathology that is in humans, but I don't think that it is human. So the tendency towards greed, and the tendency to be cruel towards others, and not just violence, because like animals eating one another can be a form of violence, but it's not like cruelty or torture.
It's part of the
That
chain.
is very different, and it's not war. And when you look at the human animal expending so much of its resources on war, and so much of its ecosystem is destroyed, or the ecosystem that humans live within is destroyed through the act of war. It's a type of insanity and a disconnection from reality, disconnection from consequences of actions, and those levels of unhealth, I don't even think originate with humanity. That I propose that humanity has been genetically modified many, many times, like spliced with other organisms, that you once had a different type of body form that literally acted differently, even though you had two eyes, a nose, a mouth, like the relative same architecture, but you ate light, you didn't eat other organisms, had a completely different circulatory system, were motivated very, very differently. And people remember that in this time now as Atlantis or Lemuria, or people might remember it as a mystical time, a mythical time. And you might long for that time, be like, oh, I remember that time. We all had utopian paradise on Earth. Everybody was healthy and happy. There were plenty of resources. We spent our days in art or music, or, fine culture, and or thinking about deep thoughts about the universe and what was truth in the cosmos. Very, very different than this world of violence and toil and strife. And it is exemplified in the current Judeo-Christian world as the expulsion from Eden. The beginning of the Bible, when it's like Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden and everything was beautiful and amazing and they didn't have to wear any clothes. And then all of a sudden, kapow, something bad happened. They, tumbled down into a different, harder level. They had a hard fall. And there's even, I always, not, but I lightheartedly joke about this because I'm never making fun of anyone's religion, but there's that famous painting where it's the expulsion from Eden and the angels like this, making a face like,
Get
get
out.
out. And
Yes.
then there's Adam and Eve, and they're like this. They're like, whoa. And because it means you got to farm. You're going to have to grow some food because you're not living in the Garden of Eden anymore. You had to learn how to create food and agriculture and animal husbandry. And then there was also Cain and Abel and violence and childbirth and all of these things that are the example of this level of reality that is mortality, very, very different than this much finer level of reality that you and a lot of your listeners, a lot of the people that tune into what you share might really resonate with. As like, yeah, that's who I really am. Like, I really remember what it was like to be able to wear beautiful silk gowns, walk around, you know, just like living a very impractical existence and magical fairyland, you know, think a thought and it comes into being. Very different than this world of toil where it's like, yeah, you can't, like, hey kid, you want it, you're gonna have to work for it. Go out there and get a job, you know, toil in the soil, grow some food,
Right.
sell it at the marketplace.
Do
This
it.
is very
Let me
different.
ask you this. So, a story I've heard about the temptation, the snake tempting Eve, I
Yeah,
have heard another version of that through an organization I've joined through Builders of the Atom. It's a mystical organization, offshoot
right.
of the Golden Dawn. Dr. Reverend Ann Davies said the story about the snake is the snake wasn't evil. The snake was there to tempt Adam and Eve to try and go out and gain knowledge, experience life so that they could, I guess, go through their journey of being human. And the snake, they say in gematria, temptation is the same as messiahhood. And when you learn to go through the journey of being human and still being in alignment with cosmic law or the cosmic or divine will, you reach the messiahhood. From where you are or where you have come from, how do you think about that story? Do you agree, disagree? Is it on target?
Beautiful question. So I really see the human genetic code as coming from a pristine origin, where it's kind of like, you know, like I'm not a transhumanist, but I use these allegories like a computer software program that's running OS God, like operating system divinity, and then having it be hacked in some way, that having something be spliced into the DNA, literally a planetary invasion from a different type of species that has very, very different qualities, characteristics, and value system that took humanity away from that perfect divine connection and made it this more violent, psychopathic level, that brutal, barbarian, all these, you know, really kind of negative things that we see about humanity right now. But I don't see it as consensual, and I don't see it as based in choice. So I think that what I take issue with in the myth of the Garden of Eden is the sense that, like, somebody chose to eat this apple or to become more intellectually gifted, and it caused this fall. Like, they call it the fall, but I joke, I'm like, he didn't fall, he was pushed, you know what I mean? Kind of like something took you down, that you were at this very exalted state that you didn't choose to descend from, and that humanity is crashed down into this current level of reality in mortality non-consensually, that you might even remember your concurrent existences of like, yeah, like, I didn't want to come down here. Some people are very resistant that I talk with. They're like, yep, I don't like being down here in the karmic washing machine, going through over and over and over all of these injustices and things that you know, trying to jump off the hamster wheel, and it's really not fair. And I agree with you, it is really unfair, and that's actually part of the motivation for me to come into this body and transform this body and this genetic code with this particular oscillation maneuver, because if one person does it, other people can do it too. So if I come in here and I'm like, hey guys, like, this is the way my DNA is dancing, I'm fixing and rewriting all of these unfairnesses that were put into you. One example is your telomeres. Telomeres are these end caps that are put onto how many times a cell can be replicated before it degrades and then essentially has an end of life experience. So there's a baked in limitation. Like, you get 100 years. 100 years is not very much time in terms of cosmic significance, and they're not even always 100 good years, like 100 years if you're lucky. And that's very artificial. That the original program or code for our body was to be able to live for thousands of years and in a state of total health, renewal, regeneration, not becoming old and decrepit and, you know, lying in a hospital bed or something like that. So that's just one example of an unfairness that was done to everyone that's here. And people have normalized it, and they say, yes, everyone will grow old, everyone will die. Hey hey kid, that's just life. You kind of learn that when you're, a youngster around here. But I resist that because I'm like, well, wait a minute. According to the brochure of what it's actually supposed to be like when you incarnate here, that's not what existence is supposed to be like at all. So there's ways in which the genetic code was limited or distorted to prevent to consciousness suppression, suppressing you from your greatness. And that flying rainbow lasagna is one tool that I can offer to humanity in terms of rectifying those diminishments and being able to access total longevity, total healing, self-healing powers, and of course, eventually healing others too. But you begin with your own real estate, you fix up your own body completely, and then you learn how to also fix up others. And things that would be considered superpowers, but that are like regular powers. Superpowers would be things like telepathy, being able to speak without your words, telekinesis, being able to move things or influence reality with your mind, manifestation, like the things that some masters of the Far East are said to be able to manifest gems, or they manifest sacred ashes, or manifest holy substances or oils, or even the great teacher Jesus manifesting fishes and loaves to be able to feed the people. Right? These are considered superhuman powers, but in the definition of what it is to be human, it's like regular human powers. Like, of course, those are your regular human powers. You're supposed to sustain yourself. You're supposed to heal yourself. You're supposed to have like your own microclimate ecosystem where you're literally generating your own oxygen and your own water and your own food, and to be this holistic presence that, yeah, you don't have to eat other animals. You don't have to do anything to get, you don't have to get something from someone else. And it's a completely different level of existence. You have different motivations when you don't have to get something from anyone else. Like, you are fulfilled in your existence and you're not motivated to be like, okay, like I'm going to buy something or sell something or wheedle or manipulate and bargain and get the stuff that I need. That's all implant. That level of humanity. So all of the commerce, all of your economy, all of that wheeling and dealing, it's not the real you. Those are characteristics that humans have acquired for survival in a very, very unfair, unjust world. But the real you is infinitely generous because you're like, I have an infinite amount of everything that I need. I have an infinite amount of energy. I, of course, have enough to share with others. And also, I receive an infinite amount of energy. I give an infinite amount. I receive an infinite amount. And I told you I've been here for about 20 years. I've witnessed humanity leveling up from the scarcity model to what humans are calling zero-point energy, or this quest for super efficient sources of energy, but which I'm really telling you is a level of unity consciousness and spiritual attainment, where you start to recognize like, wow, I don't need anything from anyone else, but I have everything and I can give everything and I can receive everything. So we're moving beyond the commodification model into levels of pure magic. Because when you have all the energy in the world, you can literally think anything into being. You can manifest anything. Like, imagine if you owned the economy. Most people right now, probably better, you're interactive with, have like a budget. Like, I have a budget. I'm like, this is how much money I have in my bank account, and this is how much I can buy. But of course, if we imagine a billionaire, they might have no budget because they have so much money. Even if they spent $1 million a day, they could have. So if I went to the garden store, like I love to go to the garden store, I could be like, I could buy one of everything and I still would have $1 billion. You could, whatever is your hobby, buy as many of it as you want. It's unlimited. That's what it's like to be a billionaire of energy. And that's your truest nature, that you have everything, and your real currency is your imagination, because we're not talking about going to the garden store. We're really talking about imagining things.
Right. Well, so the cosmic and that divine one I am, the one that we're all from, is very benevolent, and it truly is the benevolent, kind, perfect. But as you say, some outsiders, the real snakes, are the outsiders that tried to come in and destroy it. So even the one I am, the creator, has adversaries out there.
Yes.
There's somebody wanting
Yes.
to. So there really is a good and evil out there as we know it or think it.
Yeah. I would say so, yes. And it's beyond biblical terms. It's beyond anthropomorphic terms, because it is beyond what humans, it's like the egotism of humans and how they fight. It's different. It is about cosmic forces, let's say forces of divine intelligence and orderliness, in opposition to forces of injustice, arbitrariness, illogic, nihilism, like meaninglessness, and not merely chaos and disorder, but like destructive chaos. Because, like a little in the art studio, a little dash of chaos helps you
Right.
out. Like you're like,
It
oh,
goes a
that was
long way.
interesting. I didn't know that would happen. And you kind of
Yes.
work it in with whatever you're doing. But, like a total chaos, in a total chaos, you would just have a disorganized mishmash. You couldn't have a structure of like atoms and a planet and water molecules and biological life. So the total chaos that represents non-supporting of life.
Right. So you hear the talk that there are aliens among us,
Right.
and that it's a big secret, and that, oh, they're here, they're helping us evolve. And then there's uh entities like you, or energy like you.
Yeah.
What you have done, or what you have, I guess, as you're explaining, as a walk-in,
Yeah.
is that a form of aliens, as we hear, coming to live on this planet? Are there lots of people who may not have gone, seen the light, and come back, but people like you, or this entity, that probably a lot of people have happened to this? Maybe they wouldn't explain it like you, but would you say that's what is how we're evolving, that we have help that way? And is there a chance for humanity to evolve and level up to a new utopia?
Such a beautiful question. Really adore that question because the answer is a big yes. So, first of all, I'll say that I consider myself a light entity. Like, if you ask me to classify myself, and I would say that I'm extraterrestrial or extra dimensional, but also like Earth is my hood. Like, Earth is like the neighborhood that I came from a long time ago. Then I moved to Bel Air, like a gated community, but I still really care about what is going on in my origins of what's happening here, because there's a lot of strife. There's drive-by shootings, and there's drug addicts, and there's all sorts of different things. It's unfair cosmic stuff happening. So there's all sorts of different types of walk-ins. I'm a walk-in that is from a galactic presence, but sometimes when people have a walk-in experience, it's another human soul that is like, okay, you're not able to live your life either due to accident or injury or personal choice. I will step in and do this for you. Kind of like not a volunteer, but like an assistant that is in this way. Being a walk-in is as unique as being adopted into a family. Like, everybody has a different story. Some person might be like an orphan from a war. Some person might have been given up by, a parent that couldn't care for them, that was impoverished. There's different reasons why you don't have your parents, but then you get adopted. So it used to be that you had to have some kind of a horrible car accident or something that pretty much destroyed the body, made it no longer habitable. The original person couldn't be in there, and then a walk-in could come in. But since I've come in and I've met I've met walk-ins. I'm sorry, I'm so fragmented in my speaking here. The walk-ins, because I've met a lot of walk-ins, because it's just like when you're adopted, the people are like, what was it like for you? Like, how do you get by? Well, how do you do this? It's like, so you have to be like, well, here's what I do. So I've talked with a lot of different walk-ins. Some of them came in pre-2000, and they had like bad diseases or really devastating car wrecks and took a long time to heal. Some of them came in after 2000, and they had not easier, but a smoother journey. The body didn't have to be obliterated for them to be able to have the other person walk out and have the new person walk in. So some people now are able to do walk in a much less bodily destructive way, which I think is positive. But yes, yes, yes to everything in your question. That's basically saying, like, is there help? There's help. There's help from beyond this bubble of reality. Being a walk-in is like parachuting in behind enemy lines. You kind of like, you come with your food in a can, like, here's your resources,
Right.
you're jumping in there,
And may the
get
force be
ready,
with
because you're
you.
gonna, goodness, you have to kind of get yourself prepared for it. And then even when you're prepared for it, you're not prepared for it, because
You're not prepared for it.
I was not prepared for like the grocery store and selling food
So
and all of
you
these
had to
things.
learn too. I mean, you all have to learn too.
Had to learn everything from the ground up. I had to learn how to use a clothes washing machine, and I had to learn all these different things. I have a whole funny, like, you could look at the highlights of my early years here and be like laughing behind your hand, like, Aurora didn't know that. Aurora didn't know that. So I have a lot of funny fish out of water stories about all the things that I didn't know about, that, of course, like most of you,
Right.
just take as an ordinary course of life.
What about the parents, your
Yeah.
parents?
Yeah.
What do they think about your story and the walk-in situation?
Yeah, initially it was very difficult for them. Like when I first came in, I joke about this, I was totally out of the closet. And walk-ins also have different levels of disclosure. Some people come in after a surgery that might have gone awry, like a person died on the operating table. They don't always disclose. They don't always say, I'm a different person. And sometimes they have a very quiet mission where they might become a healer, they might be in service to someone else. They don't always announce on a video like, I'm a walk-in and this is what I'm here to share. So my particular mission is being very overt, and I was that explanatory from the first day that I came in. I called up the biological family of this body and I said, these are all the things that happened and I'm here now. And it was just world rocking to them. Like they really couldn't comprehend it. There was a lot of lack of acceptance. It was very, very challenging to them. And it took so many years for them to comprehend what a walk-in was, for them to go through their grief process of the loss of their daughter, because the person that they expected to be here wasn't here. Someone else was here. And I had to also try hard not to feel rejected because, it like they didn't really know who I was or what I was all about. I had to prove a lot. Like I had to prove like I'm a good person, not a body snatcher. I'm here to help humanity. I'm here in service. But I'm very happy and pleased to say now where I'm at in the trajectory of that relationship, super, super good. I had to hold the door open, or like you say, hold the space for them to grow into the understanding. It took literally like 18 years for them to really come to see like, okay, like you're not crazy. You're doing good things in the world. You have your life together and are contributing a lot. And also you're not the same person that
Right.
we knew and raised for 27 years. Now I'm very pleased to say that I have a great relationship with them.
With them.
And there's a lot of reciprocal respect.
So how did you, I mean, I'm thinking, did they have a dream or an epiphany and kind of hear this, or were you in the body and say, "Hey, mom and dad, let me explain what's going on with me"? How did the little minutia of how that, because that's so interesting.
Initially, I called them up when I first came into this body. And of course, the experience of like the previous person dying and all the brain damage and all the things that I went through, like, was a harrowing experience, not an easy birth or entry into this body at all. And as soon as I was like able to kind of, like whatever, like you figure out my basic motor skills and do all these things, I knew that I needed to contact them, and I did, and talked with them, and even introduced myself and said that I'm Aurora and that I'm a different person than they had known. And they lived a couple of hours away, so they actually came to see me in person so I could talk with them about it. And I think that they kind of discounted it. I think that they thought like, oh, like, isn't that a strange thing, kind of brush it off or laugh it off. But I remained very consistent and then talked with them more and more about it. And then there were times when that was just too much for them to be able to integrate. And then I, had to, at a certain point, like I've always been a visual artist here as Aurora. And so I just always focused on making my artwork because I really felt like it is my way of communicating the truthfulness that is inside of me. And I always felt if I can just make these paintings and make these incredibly complex objects, like people will just get it, that they'll
Right.
just begin to see and kind of sense the authenticity of who I am. So they really recognize that because, it's different than just wanting to be an artist for like
Right.
being a decorative artist is fantastic, but my work is really generated by something much deeper in terms of sharing
Sharing your
information and
stories.
math,
Right.
yeah, with humanity.
Well, did they, I mean, like your look, I mean, had they buried the old body of the other person? Have they, were you this, are you the same body, but really healed because of your abilities?
Right,
Or explain that a little bit.
that's right. So I am the same body, literally healed through my abilities and through divine connection. I must give so much credit to that divine presence for, sustaining me and preserving me so that I could still be in this body container. Um, I'm trying to collect my
Trying
thoughts.
to
It's
think. I mean,
emotional.
I mean, when you say they were a couple of hours away, had they already buried their daughter, they
No,
think?
no. So here's what happened. So the previous occupant of this body was an incredibly healthy person, literally walked like 10 or 15 miles a day, had a great cardiovascular system, all these different things, and lay down on the couch one day for a nap. turned on a kerosene heater, which is kind of an old-fashioned type of space heater. And when it runs out of kerosene, it creates carbon monoxide. Like if you don't turn it off, it will continue to smoke and
Oh,
kind of
wow.
create this very deadly fume. And that is what really started to create an anoxic brain injury, which is when you don't get enough oxygen to parts of your brain. And so that was like the physical, materialistic cause of death would be this asphyxiation and
Asphyxiation.
anoxic brain injury. Yes. And I came in to that body in the midst of that death. So it was not in a hospital setting. There was not like an ambulance that came or anything like that. I came in before any ambulance would have been called. And I think, like probably if I hadn't come in, what would have been the result would have been like a body that was in a vegetative state. Like there was such extensive brain damage that probably that person would never have been able to wake up. But instead I went in and was able to kind of bring the body back from the cliff, kind of come back from the cliff, get life processes going again, be sustained by God. And then there was also a lot of neurological damage that it took a long time to, I would say, rewire to be able to go around damage. Like there's still scar tissue and stuff that are non-active areas of the brain. And I do have epilepsy, which is like seizures because there are some not everybody in the band is playing at the same tempo. So yeah, I do a lot with CBD, which is a positive cannabinoid, to be able to mitigate those seizures. But it took me a long time. I had to learn about the brain in order to know what was going on inside of me and to be able to heal from it. But so there was not immediate medical care. So there was not an immediate MRI image. But years later, as I started to have more seizures, I did seek conventional medical care, get scanned, get all of these images done, get diagnoses, find out what parts of the brain weren't functioning. And then I had to learn to navigate the human medical system, which again is like as difficult as understanding the grocery store or the washing machine, because you can't just go to the doctor. There's all of these things that are, you understand, barriers
Oh,
to
yeah,
healthcare.
absolutely. So you had to
Yes.
really tell your parent, you had to kind of fill them in on what happened when
Oh,
you all
yes.
were apart and say, look, I have some interesting things to tell you, right? And you had to
Yes.
bring them up
Yes.
to speed on what happened.
Yes, and I was not as articulate as I am now because I had a brain injury that really affected my language centers. I
Yes.
know.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I not only I didn't have a very good vocabulary, but I didn't speak in very effective sentences. So now when you see me sometimes being a little fragmented and searching for words, that's actually like a 10,000% improvement.
Oh,
But
my
my
gosh.
primary way of communicating was really through drawing pictures, and I tried to just draw a lot of pictures. So I was not completely nonverbal, but I was just very minimally verbal. And I had to advocate hard for people to comprehend that I didn't have a psychiatric disorder. And I want to
Right.
just be really clear, love and respect people that have either psychiatric disorders or mental, emotional, biochemical imbalances. These are beautiful people, but I just had to advocate for myself, be like, no, 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 that's not what's
Wonderful.
going on with me. I'm something different. So that
Yes.
all of this stuff wouldn't get thrown in the trash bin of like, oh, like that person just has a mental disorder. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about, so we're kind of, we're got about, 15-ish minutes left. Tell us about your artwork, your music, and where does that come from, and what do you hope to do with that?
Thank you. It's the most important part of my journey here and why I'm really here. So my artwork is a type of higher dimensional language that is really a language of harmonics. And I could turn on my piano a little bit too if you wanted me to play
Sure.
like a little song. I hope that's not too loud for anyone with headphones. That's harmonics. These are harmonics. They're nested waveforms or organized waveform presences. And that is what the information that I contain and the information. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I know my
Sure.
dog is going to bark. Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew that would happen like clockwork. She hears the front door open and I knew that she would bark. So sorry about that. It's higher dimensional math language, and that is really the gift that I have to share with humanity. When people come in as a walk-in, it's not on a pleasure cruise. It's for a purpose. Like you come in here and you have some reason why God and the cosmos rearranged reality to make you be here. Sometimes it's to heal others or to serve others, or you have a gift, like I said, to share. So for me, my gift is I see these inner visions and then I'm able to paint them very accurately. body. And that was even at the beginning without any math skills, like traditional arithmetic or subtraction or anything like that. So what this artwork really represents to me, you can hear my little dog over there. She's my little companion
We
in
about had
life.
a cat in the picture because my cat was like, I want to sit in your lap.
Yes, and we love our animal. I call it creature teacher. She's my
Yes.
master teacher, so that's cheeky right down there. Yeah, she's my total love of my life, and my companion for many, many years. But initially, I healed a lot of my brain through visualizing, instead of regular numbers like 1, 2, 3, the numerics that we're used to. I would envision circles coming together. And that is what helped me to start to envision like what numbers even are, or how to recognize money or what it is. Because where I come from, everything is a series of circles and spheres and these sinuous S curves that fit together in these amazing kind of like twisting, morphing, moving packages. And so I could relate to that. So my artwork is both a way for me to express math that's totally non-linear, but that makes sense to me, and also an expression of higher dimensional math. And so as a very brief anecdote, when I first came here, like anyone, like you need to have a job, you need to be able to earn money. I had to learn about all these things and having a bank account. So I got a very entry-level position working in an art supply store that also had a custom framing department. And initially I was mastering just numbers and just like putting things on the shelf and matching up the serial numbers. And then I got bored because I'm like, okay, now I know what numbers are, but I didn't really know about math very much. And then I went into the custom framing department and they were looking for I said, hire me. And they didn't hire me. And they hired this other guy who ended up being a disaster. And he measured everything wrong and did a horrible job. And then they fired him. And I came back after they fired him. And I'm like, look, and I was kind of tough. I was like, look, give me a chance. I can't be any worse than that guy. Because I kind of learned like you had to be a little pushy in this world, all right, to be able to get an
Have to
opportunity.
assert yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So the supervisor looked at me and was like, well, you have to cut this mat for me. And I'm like, okay. He's like, show me your stuff. And he's like, well, how do I do this? And he's like, well, you have to measure an inch. And he was like, do you even know what an inch is? And I was tough. And I'm like, why don't you show me? So he had to show me on a tape measure. Like this is an inch, and this is 2 inches, and 3 inches, and 5 inches, and 6 inches. And as I saw that, I was like, oh, I get it. As something gets bigger, the numbers get bigger. And then when this tape gets smaller, the numbers get shorter. And I started to envision these circles coming together, larger circles and smaller circles. And it was a way for me to be able to grasp the abstraction of numbers and relate it to this world. So that was whatever, 2003 or so. Fast forward to 2006, I was working in a different store. And at that point, I was running the custom framing department. And I used to use a calculator to calculate, like the cost of your glass plus your frame plus your this plus your that. And at a certain point, I could do it in my head faster than having to use the calculator. So my brain healed, I leveled up, I kind of got myself into the groove of what it is to be in humanity. And then I also became more confident at being able to share my cosmic truth. I used to do a very middle of the night type of community access show. So this is before YouTube existed. This is a long time ago. Cable community access. And I felt like no one's watching this. It's the middle of the night. Doesn't matter if I don't say things perfectly. And I was very shy. And people watched it and they were like, we like your show. Like, please keep doing your show. So then I was like, okay, I will. And eventually I kind of found my voice and found a way to talk about these higher dimensional math concepts. And I formalized it into a set of recorded online whiteboards. It's called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And I did that by 2012 or so. And that contains really the most salient information that I have to share. Things that are about like, this is this double torus shape that is really an abstraction of time. It's around your body, but it also represents possibilities and probabilities of the things that can happen in your life. And it's a microcosm of a much, much larger time system that you're within. So a lot of what I teach about is the abstract nature of time. And those are what my paintings are. And then also I say that like my eyes woke up first and then later my ears woke up as my brain development got better. And I also did things like lion's mane mushroom, CBD and lion's mane mushroom, because these things really help your brain to heal. I always loved music. I started to teach myself to play the piano. piano, and I played by ear, and I didn't know any music theory, and I just kind of listened to songs that I liked. And then after many years of doing that, I started to find my own musical voice, and I started to put together these musical compositions that speak the same language as this. Everything is about the rainbow. The rainbow is beautiful and decorative, but it's also profound and meaningful, that it represents these different layers and levels of reality and these beautiful harmonic proportions that are divine proportions. And that's everything that I teach about. So I started teaching about it formally in 2012 or 2013, and that was totally related to, all of the end of the world, I wouldn't say hysteria, but like real concern that people were very afraid of the Mayan calendar and December 21st, 2012, and all these things. And we made it through that day, and everyone's looking around like, okay, like we're still here, you're still here. Then there's important stuff to do. You're still here. And I want to tell you about all this stuff. So I made a promise to myself. I'm like, I am going to call myself Professor, air quotes, Aurora. And I'm going to start this class and teach people of this world all about the things that I know. And I'm continually amazed because I still teach my class 10 years later. And I have a wonderful student body that's literally all over the world, and have, done so for, I think I counted up something like 17 non-consecutive semesters. So it's a lot. And I always go back and I review my original whiteboards, and I'm still impressed by the level of clarity of what I was tuned into all the way back then and how it relates to our ascension journey now. Because everything that I was teaching about then, about how time is shaped, how you navigate realities, how you manifest and create realities and futures that you want to be a part of, is still relevant now. And it's the stuff that we're going through. Like that was the weightlifting in the gym, and then this is the marathon that you're actually running, which is a personal attainment and a planetary attainment. I don't know if you can see that painting enough in your background, but it's also one of my album covers. It's the transformation of this whole entire planet into a higher dimensional shape. And your individual journey of ascension is an integral part of that. So now, I consider myself as even being more than an artist, musician, teacher, inspirer. I consider myself as a planetary guardian. Like I'm a protector, and I am here to create this protective force field on this planet so that you and all of these other organisms, my little dog, trees and butterflies, everything can have that freedom space to be able to remember God's self, to ascend, to re-attain light speed. So I do all of these different types of energy maneuvers that are waveform dances. That's a real dance that I do, that I also invite people to do with me. So I have a very informal weekly class that is for people who are just very much in love with this type of abstraction and movement and inner consciousness freedom state that I invite people to be a part of. And so, yeah, and the dance also, I emphasize, it dances for everyone. You don't have to have a particular type of body or ability. You can dance from the torso up if you are not able to stand. You can dance with just your hands. Whatever amount of mobility you have in your body, you move the body parts that you can move and be a part of the dance. For people of any age range and ability range, really, really big on that. Dance is a form of expression. It's the expression of who you are. It is like being. And it's because in our world, we think like you must be a ballerina or you must be a super athlete.
Right.
No, to do flying rainbow lasagna, you simply must have a genetic code and be yourself and be in the world.
Fantastic. I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to put all your links in the description so people know how to find you, and hopefully you will get some new students. And I want to thank you. I want you to hang on after I stop the recording, and maybe we'll have you again if you would like to share some more. I would love to do that. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and perhaps we can get Aurora to come in and answer if we need to. So don't be afraid to ask her anything. And thank you so very much. And I'm going to wrap this up. And Aurora, you and I will chat after I stop the recording, okay?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me, and I would love to return. And I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you.